and how we could apply it. And if you have your own idea, your own startup, think about your own startup and think how could we apply what we're gonna hear to our own idea, okay? Is it clear? Then if so, please do this so I know.
Можно изучить еще опыт в других городах, где есть такая арена. Пользуется ли это спросом?
Можно сделать в социальных сетях страницу с проектом и как бы ее развивать и как бы саму идею запустить и получить отзыв от людей, насколько они хотят, то есть использовать социальные сети.
I want to stop the actual thinking of the solutions so that you can have the question in mind while we listen at some case studies, okay? All right. Thank you. So testing, I said you just have an assumption and you test it one by one. We did this. Then the prototype. In a prototype, you build something in a way that somebody can, that the client, the customer, the target group can already like kind of feel or vision or envision what your product would look like without it being there. Okay? And then we have the MVP. The minimum viable product is something that allows the client or the target group to already experience the benefit of having it. So you can see it's different stages. One is testing an assumption, the other one is making the person imagine, visualize, realize how it could look, and the minimum viable product is already experiencing it. So maybe you build a mini ice skating ring first and people can go and you can see if they like it, you can see if they actually come back, yeah? Okay, so here the example is like, maybe you want to build a big boat to cross the Dnieper River as a kind of ferry. And then you don't have much money and you don't know if people prefer to go by boat or if they rather pay to cross with the bus over the river. But your idea is, oh, with the boat it will be more fun, the tourists will like it, and it will cost a bit more, but it will be quicker. And you think that people will go by boat, but you don't want to spend $1 million on buying the big ferry. So you test it with a small boat where you have the same value proposition. You cannot take as many people and you can see the demand. All right. Okay. Okay. This is a very, very important concept, the early adapter. Nikolai, for whom is the ice skating rink? Who is your target group?
Ну, в основном молодежь, дети, семьи с детьми, спортсмены профессиональные. Это если рассматривать чисто спортсменов и спортивные мероприятия. Если это концертное мероприятие, ну, это порядка 5000 мест зрителей. Наряду со спортивными мероприятиями можно проводить и концерт, и какие-то цирковые, то есть театральные, ну, многофункциональное место.
Okay, so what we heard Nikolai say is like families, sportsmen, kids, athletes. So that's a very typical thing that entrepreneurs tend to think of their target group in a very broad way. They think of like who could possibly ever maybe use my product, and they include all these people in their target group. Okay, who of you has a smartphone or a normal telephone? Smartphone or even a normal telephone, who has one? Okay, who does not have a telephone? No telephone. Okay, everybody is using a telephone, so maybe it's right. If you build a telephone, maybe you want to market it to everyone. But let's go a few steps back. When the very first telephone hit the market, it was a big, chunky, and very expensive thing. Who would buy that? And who can you call when you're the first person to own a telephone? So who would buy the first telephone?
Millionaires.
Your friends.
So there's like the innovators. Very small group of people that are maybe so fascinated by the technology they just want to have it. Or they're like into envisioning a future that is connected, and therefore they want to buy into it, even though they have no practical use for it yet. Okay? And then we have the group I'm talking about, the early adopters. So in the case of the telephone, it's probably heads of CEOs who have different branches in the nation and they have to communicate. Or heads of state who need to communicate with their mayors or with their counterparts across the world. So the first telephone you cannot possibly market to Nikolai's grandmother. Okay? So when you develop a product, when you developed a service, you have to think of the early adopters. Who are the people who want this and need this the most? Who is willing to live with buying a solution that is big, ugly, not very functional, and expensive? It is not everyone, but maybe there are people for whom your solution or product is so valuable that they effectively go with you into a process of developing that thing together. Of buying it and saying, this is not working, and we need to make this, and they don't get upset with you, because they understand that you are solving their critical problem, and they are willing to actually help you with it. Okay? So please, if you think about your target group, don't make it too broad, but maybe it's broad, but in the beginning, try to think about who needs it the most. Okay? Early adopters, remember that, please. Alright, so now let's look at a few examples. I will keep this short because we have some other examples. So, who of you knows Dropbox? Dropbox? Okay, so essentially Dropbox is nothing spectacular today, like the telephone, but back in the day before the cloud area of the internet, I don't know if you remember, but we used to save our files on hard drives and carry them around, and then they would get broken and we lost all our data, and it was a really painful process. And these guys had the idea to develop like a cloud-based storage. They didn't have much money. They just built a little very simple video, put it on the website, and had a sign up. Like I said, if you're interested in such a product at this price, please sign up. And then they collected several thousand email addresses in a short period of time, and they took the thing that they were testing is whether there's interest in that. So with those thousands of email addresses, they went to investors and said, look, we showed this video, we got within a week, we got, I don't know, 10,000 email addresses. Give us $1 million so we can build this. And they said, okay, there seems to be a demand, let's try it. And it worked. Next. Okay, how would you build a prototype for selling shoes?